Hey folks, this is a quick addendum to my previous video, which was my stereo setup. Of course, right when I make a video like that, I have to change something, and it wasn't for a reason that I particularly liked. You may notice a different CD player here now. Well, that has a very funny story. You might remember I used to have a Sony CD player sitting right here. Well, something funny happened not long after I made that video. This apartment started to get a very sickly sweet death smell, if that makes sense. And I thought an animal had died behind the wall here, like literally behind this wall that's behind the stereo cabinet. So I was like, oh great, I gotta wait like 2 weeks for that to dry up in the wall for the smell to go away. Well, I got sick of the smell after a couple days, and I was like, this can't just be coming from the wall. This has got to be something else. So I was literally sticking my nose in here, sniffing around to see if I could smell it. It was, whenever I would open this door, the smell would waft out, this glass door here. So I figured it was something right behind this, or it was something in this cabinet here. Turns out it was something in the cabinet. It was the CD player. As bizarre as that sounds, it was the CD player. So that Sony CD player, while it was immaculate inside and out, worked perfectly, I had to let it go. The smell coming from that was so bad that it literally made me sick to my stomach. And I think whatever off-gassing was coming out of that was noxious enough to make you sick. At least it made me sick. I felt sick for like hours afterwards. It was pretty bad. So when I investigated this and figured out it was the CD player, my first reaction was, that can't be right. Really? How can a CD player smell that bad? Oh, wait a minute. Capacitors. That's right. So I take it out, I open it up, and it looks immaculate inside. The circuit board looked fine. Mechanism looked fine. So I stick my nose in it and sniff. The board along, that side of the CD player on the old one didn't smell at all. I was just like, okay, that just smells like, solder and flux and stuff. Something you would expect a CD player to smell like. Then I stuck my nose in where the mechanism was on the old player, took a sniff and went, oh God! And it turns out that the smell was coming from the mechanism itself. So what I think happened, that player was made in 1990. And what started to happen in the early 90s? We started to get surface mount electrolytic capacitors, which were notorious for leaking and failing and just generally being very low quality items at the time. And I think they used some of those on the mechanism for that CD player, and they started to leak out. Because if you've worked in electronics long enough, you've smelled, a capacitor and electrolyte, and it stinks, man. It really stinks. Usually it gives off a bit of an ammonia smell and a bit of a death smell. If you've ever smelled like a dead mouse in the wall or something, it's like that. It's that sort of sickly sweet smell combined with a bit of ammonia, like urine smell. Well, since those surface mount caps use a more concentrated electrolyte, it was more death than ammonia, and that was clearly off-gassing into the apartment and into this particle board here. If you put your nose up there, you can still smell remnants of it now, so that's probably going to take a while for that to dissipate. So I took that CD player out, I just threw it in the garbage, because if it's off-gassing like that and making me sick, if I give that to Goodwill, it's going to make someone else sick, so I didn't want that to happen, so I just threw it away. And I got a slightly older CD player to put in its place. This is a Magnavox CDB-465 from 1987. And Magnavox was known for very good CD players back in the 80s, so it's not like the cheap Magnavox you'd think of today. This is actually when they were a brand that was worth buying. Even the VCRs back then were very good. So this CD player is a much better one, I think. It has a better laser mechanism. It has digital out on the back, coax. And it also is old enough to use index marks on CDs. So like early 80s CDs that are like a big classical suite that would use the index marks, this is compatible with those. So that's good to have in this setup anyway, because a lot of this stuff is 80s. And yeah, that's the replacement here, and it works great. and it sounds just as rich and nice as the old one did, so no harm, no foul. It's a great CD player, but I just thought I'd hook the addendum onto that because I have never had a CD player stink up an apartment before, or a room for that matter. That's that's bizarre. So keep your eye on early 90s CD players. They might start to smell bad. Usually bad caps smell like fish, but ooh, those caps smell like death. Just absolute death. Noxious death. So I thought I'd just give an addendum to this stereo setup and tell you that story because I thought it was unusual to say the least. I've never had that happen with a piece of electronics before. I've had a camcorder that smelled like fish once, but I've never had a CD player that made me sick to my stomach. So that's the end of story time. If you'd like to reach me on social media, my Twitter and Reddit are down below. And you can always join our Discord community down below as well. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one, everybody. Ciao.